Hey everyone, this is Michael from the MB Red Podcast. Hope you're all doing well today. I thought we would try something a little different. So, obviously, we've had a podcast now, Dane and I, over the past year and a half. One of the angles I like of politics and following politics is election data and polling data and all of that good fun stuff. And I know a lot of you on Twitter and social media feel the same way. So, before we begin, I want to encourage you, if you do not already, please subscribe to our podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you could get a podcast, we are there. And we've had some really great guests on as of late. Last month, we had pollster Rich Barris, People's Pundit Daily on. And our most recent episode, we had populist commentator, Fox News. I don't think he's a contributor, but he's on there. He's been on there. He's also an author, Ryan Gerdusky. So we were thrilled to have him on as well. So definitely find us on your favorite podcast app. Please subscribe, tune in. There's a lot of great content, and we'll have some great episodes coming up prior to the election in about a week and a half. So I thought it would be a good idea to talk about the kind of give a little bit of an election preview outlook for my home state of the state of Ohio. And before we jump into 2020, I think it's important to provide a little bit of history when it comes to Ohio politically. So, obviously, it's well known and documented that no Republican has ever won the White House without carrying the state of Ohio. And as a matter of fact, 29 of the last 31 winners of the state of Ohio have gone on to win the election. So, what I have here on the screen is a great graphic from the Cleveland Plain Dealer that illustrates county by county the shifting demographics, political demographics of the state of Ohio from 1996 to 2016. So back in 1996, Bill Clinton defeated Bob Dole here pretty handily. As you can see, there's just a lot of blue counties, especially along the river, where Bill Clinton did quite well as along the lake shore here along Lake Erie. And these counties here along the river are a lot of those counties that are white, working class voters. Many are non-college educated here. But as you could see over the course of the last 20 years, now 24 years, that is, the changing demographics of the state of Ohio. So in 2000 and 2004, George W. Bush ended up winning the state of Ohio with pretty similar maps. And they were critical to his victories in those 2 years. Then came 2008 and 2012, where Barack Obama did quite well in the state of Ohio. I believe back in 2008, he won the state by 5 points, and in 2012, he won it by 3 points. And then came 2016, and you could see why Donald Trump had a massive shift from 2012's electorate to 2016's electorate. First thing of note here, and we're going to shift this over to the New York Times election map. So Donald Trump won the state of Ohio in 2016 by 8 points. And you might be asking yourself, how is it that Donald Trump won the state by 8 points, considering Barack Obama won the state 4 years prior by 3 points? So there's a few things to pay close attention to here. First, one of the awesome tools of the New York Times website, I will give credit where credit's due, is this change from 2012 feature on the map. And as you can see, all these arrows here pointing to the far right show a shifting of the electorate, more Republican in the state of Ohio. There's only a handful of spots, maybe 4 that I could see offhand, where you could see some shifting to the left. You have Franklin County and Delaware County. This is the Columbus metropolitan area, state capital here of the state of Ohio. Then in southwest Ohio, you have Hamilton County, where Cincinnati is located, and just to the northeast of that, Warren County. But as you can see, much of the rest of the state moved right. But what is telling? Where are the arrows the greatest length? Right here. eastern Ohio, northeast Ohio, down in southeast Ohio along the Ohio River. As you could recall, now I'm going to go back to this right here. This is the area of the state where Bill Clinton was quite successful just 20 years ago. And as you can see, there's a lot of those. That is when the Democrat Party was more for, represented the union vote very well, that white, non college educated vote. But as you could tell, the electorate has shifted quite a bit. So, a few things of note. So, I live here in Mahoning County, and fascinating aspect of this is this area of the state of Ohio. And I'm only touching on this because I think it's important and it will provide some context of how I think 2020 is going to go for Trump here in the state of Ohio. But these two counties here, maybe even three if you throw in Columbiana, Mahoning, Trumbull, Columbiana, this represents the Mahoning Valley. Historically speaking, the Democrats would typically net between 65, maybe as much as 75,000 votes between Mahoning and Trumbull counties. Okay. In 2016, when you net the two counties together, Donald Trump actually won it net by about 2,000 votes, which is remarkable. Remember, if we go back to this arrow shift, Mahoning County, 63% of the vote in 2012 for Barack Obama, only 49.5% for Hillary Clinton. Trumbull County, maybe even more remarkable, Barack Obama got 60.5% of the vote. Donald Trump was able to get 50.7%. And as you can see here, these are not small counties. These are, I believe, the 10th and 12th largest counties in the state of Ohio. There's a lot of votes here. And let's go back here. And as I'm about to explain, without the Democrats running up and getting those big vote margins here, it really makes the rest of the state, it makes it much more difficult for the Democrats to win statewide. Not to say it can't be done, but it makes it much more difficult statewide. So let me provide a little bit more background here, just to illustrate what Donald Trump was able to accomplish in 2016. So he won 80 of the 88 counties in the state of Ohio. Let me show you why that is important. So you got Cincinnati here, Hamilton County, which was actually once a traditional Republican area. The Cincinnati Metro, as I'm about to show you, is still fairly conservative though. But look here, one county, Hamilton County. If you take any two of these three counties to the north, northeast, or east of Hamilton County, you completely offset the Hamilton County vote. So that's two counties. You go up here to Toledo. I think when I did the math, if you go around, and I think it's the 5 or 6 counties surrounding Toledo here, you completely offset the vote in Toledo. Then you go over here to the city of Akron. This is Summit County. You could just go one county over, but we'll be generous here and just say two. Two counties completely offset Akron's vote. So you had 2 counties down here, about 6 up here, another 2 over here. So 10 counties completely offset Toledo, Cincinnati, and Akron's vote. That leaves you with 70 counties in the state. And it's important to note here, Lorraine barely went to Clinton. Mahoning, like I touched on earlier, barely went to Clinton. Again, only net a few thousand votes there. And then down here in Athens County, this is where Ohio University is located. It might be jumping out at you, why is this county blue? Ohio University is the reason behind that. But back to my point I was trying to make here. Rural counties in the state of Ohio aren't necessarily very small when you look at rural counties in other parts of the country, perhaps like in the Great Plains, for instance. There are a lot of people in some of these counties, and it's not out of the realm of possibility where Donald Trump could win those other 70 counties by, on average, let's say 10,000 votes, because there's some big ones here. Just to my south, Columbiana County, which I had mentioned earlier, went huge for Donald Trump in 2016, and he net 19,000 votes there in that one county. County to the south where Donald Trump Jr. is this evening, this is Jefferson County, home of Steubenville, the Big Red, another county where Trump net over 12,000 votes. The point I'm trying to make here is you have 70 remaining counties. Again, we'll just give you 10,000 votes each on average margin. And again, some counties are more. There's some counties out here in Western Ohio. Look at this one. Almost 80% of the vote for Trump. Just huge margins out in this part of the state. But again, huge margins and racking up votes. So 70 counties, 10,000 votes. That's 700,000 votes. So right there, 700,000 votes to offset Columbus and Cleveland. And as you could see, that's how it was done. That was Donald Trump's path to winning it and winning it substantially. So fast forward 2018. So we're not even going to talk about the Senate race with Sherrod Brown. He won pretty handily against, I would say, probably a weaker opponent, Republican Congressman Jim Renacci. And it's interesting to note here is former state treasurer Josh Mandel, who ran against Sherrod Brown in 2012, only lost by 4 points, was destined to run against Brown, but had to back out of the race, I think about a year before the election. Had he stayed in, I do believe that he could have been victorious. It would have been a tight race, but I do think he would have been victorious. I know pollster Rich Barris on his show has said on multiple occasions he thinks that he will actually, Brown that is, would have lost quite handily. But nonetheless, I think Mandel would have won. But nonetheless, this is how I really view the state of Ohio in terms of the electoral makeup, is this map right here for the Ohio governor race in 2018. Important to note, and we'll talk about the polls in a moment. 2018, the last two polls that came out had Richard Cordray ahead by roughly 4 points. And as you get to see here, Mike DeWine ended up winning the state by 4 points. So it was an 8-point miss in the polls. And if we go back to 2016, heading into Election Day, the polling average on Real Clear Politics had it around a 2-point margin. Donald Trump again won by 8, so a 6-point miss. So for whatever reason, polling has struggled in the state of Ohio over the last 2 cycles. I'm not sure why. I know I watch Richard Barris' show every day. He talks about how some pollsters just may be missing down here along the Ohio River. And I think that's a valid reason. But as you look at this map, this is how I view the state. Probably about a +4 for the Republicans here. And again, this was a good night for the Democrats nationwide. Not so much in the Senate, but they did pick out the House, picked up a lot of seats in the House. And were successful in a lot of states. But here in Ohio, despite that, they still were not able to knock off Mike DeWine, who got 50.5 percentage points. But then again, look at this. A lot of red counties throughout the state. You have Trumbull County to my north, which again went for Trump, going slightly for Cordray. Same with Mahoning County, a little bit more, greater of a margin. But again, these are counties where the Democrats, my home counties here, the Mahoning Valley, where the Democrats would typically get 55, 60, maybe 65% of the vote in statewide elections. And as you can see here, they're just not doing it. And as a result, it makes the state much more difficult to win without netting those, let's say in a presidential election. Again, 55, 65, maybe 75,000 votes here. So then let's move forward here into 2020. Kind of gave you my predictions. So I do think Donald Trump will ultimately be victorious. As it currently stands about a week and a half out, I'm not quite there when it comes to saying or believing that Trump can win the state again by 8 points, but I do think it could be possible if the polling continues to close, which it looks like it's happening. Again, in factoring in the polling misses of 2016 and 2018, I think it's possible. But here's a few things of note. A couple areas of the state where I do expect some shifting of the electorate towards Joe Biden. First and foremost, watch the Columbus metropolitan area. Franklin County, Hillary Clinton got just shy of 60% of the vote. I'd imagine she'll get slightly more than 60% of the vote and increase her margins in the state capital here in Franklin. The county to really watch, though, I would say, is Delaware County to the north. Delaware County is a nice mix of rural and suburban communities. So if we go back here to 2012, look at the change. Mitt Romney won this county with 61% of the vote. Donald Trump just a little less than 55% of the vote. Would not be surprised if Trump gets just around 50%, maybe slightly more. But again, the reason I believe that could be possible is, again, this whole idea of white college educated voters. There's a lot of them in this part of the state around the Columbus metropolitan area, and a lot of them have settled into the southern region of Delaware County. So I would not be at all surprised to see this area shift a little bit. I'd fully expect Donald Trump to win it, but just not by the margin that he did. Then down here in Cincinnati, you might see a similar thing. Again, this is a county that typically in the past had been Republican, trending a little bit Democrat. But again, look at these counties. There's very large population counties to the north, Butler County. Then you have northeast Warren County, and then into the east Clermont County. Excuse me. Lots of votes here. When you combine them all up, the Cincinnati Metro remains Republican. Then you have a county here like Montgomery County. This is Dayton. Interesting enough, Republicans were able to win it just slightly. Look at that, less than a percentage point here in 2016. Go to the Ohio governor race. Look at that, a couple hundred votes. So you could see here that it's possible that that county might shift. But again, I don't expect it. It seems like this is a 50-50 type county, so maybe some slight movement. Then the last two counties I'd watch on election night are going to be Cuyahoga County. Here's another one. Look at this. Hillary Clinton got 65% of the vote. And I might be off on this. Cuyahoga is either the number one or the number two most populated county in the state of Ohio. But again, Hillary Clinton got 65% of the vote. Let's go back to 2012 and you're going to see what I'm talking about here. Barack Obama got nearly 70% of the vote and nearly 450,000 votes here. Look at that. 50,000 more votes in 2012 when compared to 2016. Democrats, if they want to win the state, they need to get the voters out here in Cleveland. And then I will also watch the Akron metropolitan area. This would be Summit County, some of the affluent suburbs of Akron and Cleveland, which would be like a Hudson, a lot of college educated voters there, which in the past had voted Republican. We've talked about it on our podcast. Dane is up in Cuyahoga County, but he knows from going through this part of the state, there are a lot of Biden signs in Hudson. So this is also where Goodyear is located. And obviously there was that little issue a couple months back where Trump went after Goodyear. So I would not be surprised if Summit County went a little bit more to the left. But again, those are the four areas where I'm watching. And one last point that I think is important is, again, going to be this part of the state. This would be Stark County, where Canton is located, Mahoning County, where my home of Youngstown is located, and Trumbull County, where Warren is located. Interesting note here about Trumbull County. That is where GM Lordstown's plant was. And if you follow Donald Trump's Twitter, he has tweeted, that is, plenty about this plant that GM eventually closed down back in, I believe it was 2018, early 2019. They closed it down. Now, one would think that is detrimental to Donald Trump's odds of winning, but facts do matter. Lordstown Motors, which appears to be coming to fruition and is going public, purchased a plant from GM. Next fact, right next to this old GM plant, GM and LG are building I want to say it's a maybe $2 billion battery plant that they are going to build batteries for their electric vehicle fleet that they are going to start manufacturing over the next decade. And then right across the interstate, the turnpike, there is a massive TJX distribution center. Those three projects right there, in a few years, are going to probably employ more than 3,000 employees, which is important. So again, was it bad that GM closed? Was Donald Trump hoping that he would be able to keep it open? Yes, but I don't think from, obviously living in this community, that the Republicans or the voters, that is, blame Trump for that. This is a plant that at one point, I believe, employed more than 10,000 employees. It has been cutting shifts in recent years, and regardless of whether it was Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, I do believe that plant would have closed. So lastly, I would just say my overall prediction right now, I would say a Donald Trump win in the neighborhood of 4 to maybe 6 points as it currently stands. And let's take a real quick look here at some of the early voting data, courtesy of Target Smart. Now, I'll say this. I'm not sure I would put a lot of stock in thinking that this is the gospel when it comes to early voting. But we'll just for now, let's just use this for discussion's sake. So in 2016, the Democrats outvoted the Republicans in early vote about 48 to 41%, or roughly. As you could see in 2020, the Republicans have done a good job of getting the early vote out. They actually have a slight lead. And obviously, as we've seen polls, whether it's in the state of Ohio or nationwide or in other swing states, Republicans are much more likely to vote on election day than Democrats. So one would think if the Republicans go into election day with perhaps a lead in the early vote, which according to Target Smart is the case right now, depending on, again, how unaffiliated voters end up voting, then it would seem as though it's going to be difficult for Joe Biden to win in the state of Ohio. Another interesting fact, I don't know if you remember the 2016 election night, but Hillary Clinton, through the first 35% of the returns that came in, had a pretty decent lead in Ohio. I thought it got maybe not as high as 10%, but I think it was between maybe 5 and 8 points before Donald Trump and the election day returns really started pouring in, where Donald Trump really beat up Hillary Clinton in terms of the margins. And that's what led him to the 8-point victory. So if you're a Republican, you've got to be encouraged with some of this information. Let me see here. I have one more thing I wanted to show you, and this is from Elect Project. Michael McDonald's been tracking that. He's done a phenomenal job in terms of tracking early voting taking place across the country. I think as of yesterday, more than 40 million Americans have already voted in this election. But let's look here and why the Republicans might have an edge. As you can see, a lot of these dark blue counties, and again, take off the partisan hat here. A lot of these dark blue counties here represent the return rates of mail-in ballots. But a lot of these dark blue counties are Republican counties. We talked about this part of the state right here. Went heavy to Trump. Big shift from 2012 to 2016. Heavy to Trump. They're coming out in big numbers. Where the Democrats need to do a better job of getting the earlier vote out. Again, the first number 1 and number 2 most populated parts of the state, Cuyahoga, only 45%, and down here in Franklin, 52%. But again, look at some of these counties, 80%, 76%, 83%. The areas of the state that have voted Democrat in recent elections, like here, Lucas County, which is Toledo, 36%. So I fully expect once they get their vote out that this margin is going to trim. But if it goes into election day, split between Republicans and Democrats, I think it's going to be very difficult for the Democrats to win the state of Ohio. So again, my prediction right now, as it currently stands, would be about a 4 to 6 point victory for Donald Trump. Again, I think the key for Donald Trump, if he wants to win it, is going to be retaining this part of the state here from the PA border to Southeast Ohio. Fracking is a big part of the Ohio economy, especially, I would say, from Columbiana County on south. But just across the border in PA and Beaver County is a massive cracker plant being built on the Ohio River. All of that impacts the panhandle of West Virginia and Southeast Ohio. It all is part of that fracking industry. It's an important issue. So I do expect Donald Trump to do well there. And just from talking to some people, some internals show the 13th congressional district, which is Tim Ryan's district. He's been the congressman since 2002. Donald Trump actually has been polling quite close, if not ahead, in that district, which he lost by about 6 points. And knowing that Trump is polling that well there leads me to believe that the Democrats probably aren't going to be able to flip these counties back to the blue. Obviously, they won Mahoning, but to shift it back to bigger margins, it doesn't seem like it's happening. Somebody lives in Mahoning County. They have the state GOP, national GOP, have made investments here. They have a Trump victory headquarters that they put in. They've brought in a number of speakers. The local GOP has put out some 18 or so massive billboards across the county. I know Selena Zito of the Washington Examiner wrote about how they are actively trying to flip the county red to the Republicans. in 2020. It'll be interesting to see. Again, 1972 is the last time the Republicans won here, and they are making a push. And it's worth noting in 2018, the Republicans did win a state House and state Senate seat that had historically always been Democrat in this county. So that's all I have. Again, before I conclude, I want to encourage everybody, please subscribe to us on Facebook. Or that is, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us and hit that notification bell on YouTube, and then also subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We have a lot of great content on there. We think you'll enjoy, and we hope you enjoyed this, something kind of a change of pace from a podcast to more of an election preview. If you have any comments that you might have or any questions, please let us know. Leave them in the comment section below, and please share this on social media. Help us grow our account. We really appreciate it. And we really hope we can continue growing this moving forward. So again, thank you everybody, and take care.